Okay, you should be able to see the screen now, and I've got a few people uh, just so I don't have to look down below on the side here. And this is a basic outline of my talk. First of all, my first topic of the 5 is the history of PHAA. I'll take you from when we got started, all by surprise, until today. Then the second, third, fourth, and fifth topics are sort of chronological in a different way. Instead of the history of PHAA, it's the history of what you do with a student in the PHAA program. Number 2 is you get started. Number 3 is while the student is in high school, you get course credits. Meeting with the evaluator is part of that. Number 4 is graduation. And then very briefly, at the very end, how PHAA Diploma helps graduates. And I'm expecting a lot of questions from you guys when we get to number 3, getting course credits with PHAA, because that's the most complicated part of all. So let's get started with part 1. First of all, I want to tell you where you can find all the information about this talk without listening to this talk. But I've organized it, I think, in a better way. So it's worthwhile to listen anyway. One is on our website, and this is what our website looks like. You can see there are a lot of links. The opening page tells a lot about the PHAA program, and it has great links to other things, including about the PHAA graduation ceremonies, the conference that we're doing right now, how to find PHAA evaluators, getting into the store. That's the place where you can order things. You can join PHAA there, get the diploma there, and more includes some of the forms. So this is the basic website page. And if you scroll down just a little bit more on this page, you'd get to, for more information about PHAA, download the free Guide to PA Homeschoolers Diploma. The Guide to PA Homeschoolers Diploma has everything in one place. It's a approximately 32-page PDF file that you can print out and have. We used to sell it for $5, but now you just get it for free, and you can download it and print it out. And that has in detail everything I'll be talking about today. And here's what it looks like. This is the front cover of it. This is the July 1st, 2020 edition. There's our email address. There's our phone number. There's our website. So those are the alternatives to the talk, but now I'm ready to get started with the talk. And remember, my first topic was the history of PHAA. And here's a timeline of the PHAA program. It all started in December 1988. At that time, all of the homeschoolers in Pennsylvania had young children. The homeschooling movement was very new, and Pennsylvania was prosecuting more people than any other state. So at that time, we got a homeschool law passed, and our main goal was to end the prosecutions. Fortunately, we had a champion who was much wiser than we were. His name is Joe Pitts. He was a state representative at the time, and he later became a congressman in Washington, D.C. And what he did, which we didn't understand and never asked for, is he put graduation requirements into the homeschool law. Now, why are requirements good things? Because they meant that there was a diploma at the end of homeschooling. And Pennsylvania is still one of the only states in the country that has a high school diploma that you can get from homeschooling. Believe it or not, it's still, this many years later, we're one of the few. Now, That was December 88, but we didn't start PHAA until 1990 because that's when, for the first time, we were starting to get homeschool seniors getting ready to graduate. And none of them had been homeschooled the whole way through. They'd been pulled out of school after their mothers or dads had started homeschooling the younger kids in the family. So they were just getting ready to graduate. And in 1991, we held our first graduation ceremony. Skipping ahead, we had our first PHAA conference in 1997. Before that, PHAA was an unincorporated organization, but we incorporated in 1996 as a nonprofit corporation, and we had our meetings at the graduation ceremonies, our annual meeting, starting in 1991, but we had our first we moved our meetings to the PHAA conference. And today, if you look on the schedule at the end of the day, there's a meeting in the presentation thread or the discussion thread. Okay, 1997, the membership voted to have a 2,500 word term paper. This was because of Bill Gates. He invented Microsoft Word, and any term paper could be turned into 10 pages, which was our previous requirement, simply by making the font bigger. So we needed a new way of doing things. Before that, before Microsoft Word, people often hand wrote out their term papers. With Microsoft Word, they began to actually began to type them on computers, and they could make anything into 10 pages. So we specified 2,500 words, and you can actually do a word count thanks to Bill Gates. And continuing on, there were more membership votes. Membership voted definition, membership. At these annual meetings, the bylaws can be amended. We're going to, as I say, we have a membership meeting coming up today. If the membership at the meeting decides to amend the bylaws, then we send out to all the people in PHAA, and it takes a 3/4 vote of all the members who vote to change the bylaws. And we've changed our bylaws in significant ways several times. And just last year, we moved our PHAA conference online. Before that, we would have it in buildings. But we like it online. I think we're going to stay this way. Now, we're starting now with my second topic, which is taking you through the PHAA program from when you start with a student to graduation and after. And starting has to do with PHAA forms. Now, how did I get to PHAA forms on the website? I clicked where it says more. I clicked on that little downward caret, and I found PHAA forms. Now, all of these printed up forms are also in the diploma guide, which I showed you a picture of a little bit ago. Here's a picture of the filing form. That's the form you use to join PHAA. You would mail this in summer before 9th grade, as early as that, because your evaluator cannot prepare your PHAA transcript until you have joined. Now, that doesn't mean you have to join in 9th grade. Some people wait until their senior year to join, but their evaluator can't actually fill out a PHAA transcript until they have. Now, you don't have to send in the mail-in filing form because we also have everything in our PHAA online store. There was a link to the store on our home page. And one of the links there in the store is to join PHAA for Student. That's our online filing form. And here's what that page looks like. All you have to do is fill in the student's name, first, middle, and last, their birth date, and the student's email address. We get the other information like your email address and address based on you're in the store and you check out, so we get your address from that. You also choose the graduation year, 2021, 2022, and so on. There's the link to store I was talking about. So that's how you get into the store. Now, something else, let's go on to the next step. You've joined PHAA, now you need to get credits. How do you get credits? You do it through your evaluator. You have to meet with a PHAA evaluator at the end of every school year. And that PHAA evaluator goes over based on our requirements and awards you credits and fills out a transcript. So how can you find a PHAA evaluator? The next page, see that where it says evaluators at the top, the next page is what you get if you click there. It's a PHAA listing of evaluators. Maybe you can basically see the outline of Pennsylvania here. This is a Google map. You can make it bigger, you can expand it. If you clicked on 6F, that's where my wife and I lives, and 6F happens to be my wife. And you would go down the page and you would find all the information about her. It would tell, if you clicked on that, it would tell you you can find the information in the 724 area code. You look there and you could find her. And you could expand it and see all the evaluators in Armstrong County, all the evaluators in Pittsburgh. We have evaluators almost everywhere in the state. You really don't have to go far. And some of the evaluators have listed that they are willing to travel for evaluations. So you might have an evaluator come to your house if you choose one of those evaluators. Some of them can also evaluate your elementary students without advance written permission from the local school superintendent. If you get advanced permission, you can use anybody as your evaluator. Some of them can, they almost all can evaluate for secondary students without advance permission. Some can pre-approve for handicapped children. These are children who were classified as handicapped by the school district before you started homeschooling. Some offer testing. You're supposed to have your kids tested in 3rd, 5th, and 8th grades, and there are a lot of different ways you can test. Anybody but the parent can do it. Even the grandparents can give the test. But you could also go to one of the evaluators and they can give individualized tests, which are very different from the standardized normed achievement tests. So that can be very useful, especially if you have a handicapped student, to get that kind of a test that won't be based on a grade level at all. Now, what will the evaluator be looking for? And now we're getting into the part where I'm expecting questions. We have year's work checklist. That's one of the forms you can find in the diploma guide, and you can also find it online if you click on forms. And it basically tells what you have to do to get credits in the PHAA program. This is what the evaluator is going to be looking for a PHAA English course. Most of our requirements, our heavy-duty requirements, are in the English course. You have to read every year 25 books, or a literature anthology and 15 books, or 10 books of the Bible and 15 books. That's a lot of reading. Turns out that the average homeschooler reads about 50 books, and that's one of the reasons why homeschoolers score so well on tests, because the more you read, the better your vocabulary, and the better your vocabulary, the better you score on tests. Among those 25 books, there has to be 3 classics. Now, the definition of classics depends upon the student. If it's a person who's still reading at, say, the junior high or elementary level, a Newbery award-winning book is a classic. Any book that has won an award is a classic. Almost any book that has stood the test of time is a classic. Also, almost every book that a movie has been made of is a classic. So if you can read among those 25 books, there should be at least 3 classics. That's our reading requirement. Does anybody have any questions about our reading requirement before I go on to the next step? Please unmute your microphone. You can even hold down your space bar while you talk and then ask your question.
I have a quick question. I was just curious how audiobooks might fit in.
Well, audiobooks are really, really worthwhile because it turns out that listening to books read aloud is a great way to improve your reading comprehension. For some reason, it slows people down. They have time to think about what they read. Families reading together. It's a great way to learn. It's a great way to learn about the world, but it doesn't fit the reading 25 books because that's actually reading yourself. So I think audiobooks are a great idea and should be part of your education, but in addition, you have to read 25 books. Now, again, it can be adjusted to grade level. So, I mean, to reading level. Don't expect a student who's not a real good reader to read 25 really tough books. And also, we consider if a book is more than 250 pages, we consider a 500-page book to be equivalent to 2 books. So we don't have any kind of we don't want to just get people reading short books. I'm going to go on to the writing requirement. You have to write at least 4 compositions each year, and one of them has to be at least 2,500 words long. Now, it doesn't say it has to be a research paper. It doesn't say it can be a play. It could be a fictional story. It could even be historical fiction. It could be anything it could be a description of something you did. Let's say you grew a garden and you decided to write a composition about everything you did growing the garden. That could be a great 2,500 word paper. Now, you will have to write 4 compositions. Only one of them has to be this long. The others can be 1 or 2 pages long. That's all, but they should be in your portfolio. Homeschoolers in Pennsylvania are required to keep a portfolio. You should have a book list in your portfolio, the books you've read. That doesn't mean you have to write about every book you read. That's not the point. It's just that you should read those books. But writing the compositions, you could have at least 4 of them in your portfolio, and one of them has to be about 2,500 words, which turns out to be about 9 or 10 pages in normal font. Now, we have a grammar requirement that is pretty minimal. You can do any of these 3 things. There is an or here. You can keep rough drafts of your compositions which show that punctuation usage and your grammatical errors were corrected in the process of writing these compositions. That's all. Or you could work through over 1/4 of a grammar or language textbook. That's all. Or you could log at least 45 daily entries of work in language and grammar study. Then our last requirements is that you have to give at least 1 speech during the year to a group outside the immediate family. By the way, we have a speech contest going on. I think it's at 1 o'clock in the presentations thread, or maybe it's in the discussion thread. Maybe it's 2 o'clock. But at any rate, we have a speech contest. Those are people, probably they're fulfilling their PHAA speech requirement. And the winners will get prizes. And you can watch the winners at 4:40 because the 3 winners are going to make their presentation. So why do we have this requirement that you have to give a speech? Well, first of all, it's in the homeschool law. English has to include speech. Second of all, we want our kids to be able to speak in public. It really helps them. A lot of people are shy, get experience. Now, the speech has to be to a group outside the immediate family, but the immediate family doesn't include grandparents. You can give your speech to grandparents. Some people say, how can I find a place where I can give a speech? Well, this year it's tougher than normal. The Excelsior, by the way, also runs some speech days. That's our PHAA student newsletter. If you get on the Excelsior staff, you can join them for one of their speech days on Zoom. Now, in normal times, everybody can give a speech. There's an audience out there that will always be receptive in every community, and that is the old folks' homes. The old folks' homes love it when young people come in and give a talk. Now, your audience some of them may not look very alert and sitting there in their wheelchairs. It might not be the greatest audience to talk to, but you'll find some alert people and they'll be interested, and you'll try to make it interesting for them. And that's one of the points in giving a speech. You have an audience and you try to make it interesting and you try to make it lively. Now, we have an alternative to all of these. If you take 2 college English courses plus give a speech, or if you do 2 AP English courses, or one AP English course, there's 2 AP English courses, AP English Literature and Composition, AP English Language and Composition. If you take one of them and you give a speech, you met the requirement. You don't have to write the 10-page paper, read the 25 books. All you have to do is this. Now, before I go on, I'd like to hear any questions about PHAA English requirements. And I'm not going to go on to the next topic until I've heard at least 3 questions. You can hold down your mute button and ask a question while it's held. I mean, not your mute button, your space bar. Or that will unmute you while you ask a question. And then when you're done asking the question, if you let up on your space bar, or else you can click unmute and then mute yourself when you're done. Okay, who has a question about our PHAA English course requirements?
I have a question about the speech giving. Is there an amount of time the speech has to be, like a length of time? And do you have to provide proof of having given the speech, like a recording or something?
Normally the speeches are about 5 minutes long. That's basically what we're doing here here, but I don't think it's specified in the bylaws. And there are a lot of different ways that you can prove it in your portfolio. As long as you can satisfy your evaluator that you actually gave the speech. You might have some comments from the audience. Those are great. If you can get some comments from the audience, your evaluator can put those comments right into the evaluation letter. Oh, did I mention the evaluator not only fills out your transcript, but they write a narrative evaluation explaining everything in your transcript. So when they're describing the English requirements, they'll tell what you wrote your paper about. They'll give some comments about it. They'll maybe talk about your other compositions. They'll mention the 3 classics, and they'll probably include any good comments you got from your speech when somebody gave a speech. Those are wonderful ways to sell. Think of the transcript as the summary of what you did, and the narrative evaluation is the full explanation. And when we send transcripts to colleges, we not only send the transcript and cover letter of the transcript, but we also include all the evaluation letters. And most college admissions offices actually read those evaluation letters. It's like every one of them can be a recommendation of the student. You can't beat them for helping you get into college. So anyway, those are some of the ways that you can show your speech. You just have to have some documentation. That's question 1. Remember, I said I won't go on until we get 2 more.
I have a question. It says at the top, it says, in order to complete the minimum requirement, a student must meet all of the following each year. So if we do the PHAA requirements, they have to read 25 books, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th each year. But on the alternative requirements, it's only 2 English courses or an AP English course. So does that mean, I guess it's less, right?
No, that means in 1 year.
Okay, all right, got it.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
This is actually a question that I spoke with your wife about a few years ago. Our children are dual enrolled at our local high school, so they do some classes at home and some classes at the high school. and some of them have chosen to take English at the high school. She had said that that's a one-to-one, like whatever grade is given at the high school, that's counted and it's fine towards the PHAA diploma requirements. And I was just confirming that that was still the case.
Yes. Any grades you get from high school student classes taken at a high school, we put on the PHAA transcript. Same thing with college courses. If you take a college course and you get a grade, we also put the college course on the PHAA transcript. But that doesn't, just because you take an English course at a high school doesn't mean that you don't have to read the 25 books. You count everything that you read for every course you take toward those 25 books. Let's say you're doing a history course and you read 10 biographies. What a wonderful way to learn history. 10 biographies. Those all count toward your 25 books. Let's say you get interested in a period of history and you read a lot of books about that, about the Civil War. Every one of them counts towards your 25 books. Anything you do in any subject area counts. So you can do a high school English course, but that doesn't, and everything you do in that course counts towards our English course requirements, but that doesn't mean you can skip the rest of our English course requirements.
So in that case, they're still required to provide a 2,500 word.
Yes, probably you would do one as part of that English course, but if you don't, yes, you'd have to write one. You could do your 2,500 word paper as part of your social studies course or your science class that you do at home. You could,
Okay, thank you.
You could do dual, you could get credit for it, but you'd still have to write it. See, what we're finding is that we have this tremendous reputation with colleges. Homeschoolers from our program are literate, they're really good readers, they're good writers because they've had a lot of practice writing. Some homeschoolers go to college and they've never written anything. They can't even write because all they've done is some workbook program where they fill in the blanks, and that's been their education, and they fail in college. And public speaking, our kids are able to speak up in class because they've had more experience with that. Our kids have this absolutely fabulous reputation with colleges. In fact, Penn State, I've never yet heard of one graduate of our program not being admitted to Penn State University. Now, that doesn't mean they always get into the main campus. Sometimes they have to start out at the New Kensington campus or some Erie campus. I forget where the campuses are, but they haven't rejected a single graduate of our program. We have this fabulous reputation. Why? Because our kids read, they write, and they give speeches. And there's another thing involved. Let's say you had a homeschooler who wouldn't read. Would you go with our program? No. So we chase away all the homeschoolers who actually don't read. Now, as I say, our English course requires, anybody else have a question? I got my 3, but I'm ready to hear more. Okay, I'm going to go on to the other requirements, and you can come back to English anytime you want. Our other requirements are very flexible. Whoops. Well, I was going to give you an example of a research paper here, but I'll come back to that. For a full year course, in anything else, that could be social studies, science, music, anything, you have to do one or the other, or the other. This is all or. Remember, in the English course, it was all and. You have to do this and this and this and this. With the other courses, you do this or this or this or this or this or this or this or. Now, what are they? Over 2/3 of a textbook. This is a standard way of doing things. You work through a textbook. Now, most of the time when people work through a textbook, they answer the questions at the end of the chapter. But that's not the only way to get credit for going through 2/3 of a textbook. You could write a summary at the end of every chapter. That'd be fine. Just have some sort of written record. 120 daily logged entries. What am I talking about? Well, or 120 hours of logged studies. You're supposed to keep a log made concurrently with instruction to comply with the homeschool law in PA. Pretty much people are fairly lazy about doing that and don't do great logs, but every once in a while somebody does. Here's a girl that I saw who did like the most incredible log I've ever seen. She gets course credit for every single subject that she took because of this log. She has at least 120 entries. This is from a planning book. She puts down what she does each day. This is Thursday. Today for English, I worked on my term paper and so on. History, today for history, I continued to read and take notes on the life of Caesar Tiberius. Today for Bible, I read from Francis Schaeffer, his discussion of modern theology. Today for psychology, I studied and took notes on acquiring language. What a fabulous log. That's all she has to do with this kind of log. She can document her hours if she wants. She gets up to 120 hours, she's done. She can document her days, 120 days. Remember, there's 180 in the school year. So 2/3 of the days, logged entries. So that's one way of doing things. Logged entries. It's the simplest way. But it sure takes organization because you have to get to it. So you have to actually do it every year. Now, is that going to hurt you in life to be really well organized? So maybe this is a good idea for you. Just think, if you were this well organized in high school, you're going to be well organized in college. You're going to be well organized on the job after college. It'll really serve you well in life. So that's an alternative. Or you could write a 10-page research paper. And the paper must include at least 3 non-encyclopedic references that demonstrate learning of a subject and include a conclusion based upon the student's own research. Okay, if you write a 10-page, 2,500-word paper, you've completed the English requirement. But there's nothing about the English paper that could be rejected by your evaluator. But an evaluator is going to be looking for more than just 2,500 words. If you wrote it to get credit for a course, it has to include at least 3 non-encyclopedic references. That means 3 things that aren't just Wikipedia or Encyclopedia Britannica. It has to demonstrate learning of a subject. That's tricky to demonstrate. You have to demonstrate you learned something from it. And include a conclusion based upon your own research. You have to actually think. Now, what kind of references are we talking about? That's what I meant to show you. Here's a paper that my son, Jesse Travis Richman, who's now a college professor, and if you go to the speech contest today, you'll hear 2 of his kids who are being homeschooled actually give speeches. My grandson, David, and my granddaughter Leah. So you can see you're getting the Richmans all over the place. And getting ready for the future, he wrote a paper about the local economic history. And he had a bibliography. This is what you almost have. And he has lots of references, not just encyclopedia references. He's got county history books, newspapers and magazines, and interviews. Whoever thought you could have interviews as part of a research paper? Some of the best research papers I've ever seen have interviews. There was a girl who wanted to be a missionary. So she set out to read about missionaries of the past and interview by email the missionaries that her church was supporting in the present. So she had those interviews with missionaries of the present. Then she compared missionaries of the past with missionaries of the present. It was a great paper with a lot of her own thoughts in it. So interviews are a great source of information that you can include. So this is a typical thing that a research paper will include, a bibliography, and that bibliography has to have at least 3 non-encyclopedic references. An interview is a non-encyclopedic reference. A newspaper article is a non-encyclopedic reference, and these books are not encyclopedias. So that's the 2,500 word research paper. You could take a college course. The basic equation is the following. 1 semester of college equals 1 year of high school. Now, a semester is a half year of college. So let's say you were doing Spanish in high school. You would do Spanish 1, Spanish 2, Spanish 3, Spanish 4 in 4 years. Let's say you were doing Spanish in college. You would do Spanish 1 first semester, Spanish 2 second semester, Spanish 3 third semester, Spanish 4 fourth semester. That's 2 years. Each semester of college gets you 3 or 4 credits of college course, and that translates into 1 high school course. So every college course is 1 high school. Now, that's assuming it's a 3 or 4 credit course. If it's a short college course that only gets 1 or 2 credits, maybe 1 credit, then it's probably a half year of course, not a full year course. And that's my next topic, half-year courses. Now you can do an AP course with a college board-approved syllabus. For example, all of the courses you'll learn about from Pennsylvania Homeschoolers AP Online today are advanced placement courses with college board-approved syllabuses. What is AP? AP means advanced placement. AP, advanced placement. What it is you take an exam in May. Actually, some exams aren't going to be given until June this year, but that's unusual. You take an exam in May, and if you pass it with a really good grade equivalent to a college A or A minus, then, and some colleges for a B, then you get college credit from that college. Now, some colleges won't give you college credit for AP courses, but they will give you advanced placement, and they'll let you skip the first courses in a field when you go to college. It's a way you can do college work at home, and you can get an advance. You can actually be ready for college with a lot of college credit. Basically, what it is the lower the college down on the list, the more readily they accept college credits from AP courses. Indiana University of Pennsylvania is pretty low on the list. If you get the equivalent of a B on the exam, you get college credit. Then you go a little bit higher on the list, and say University of Pittsburgh, you have to get a 4 or a 5 on the exam, which is equivalent to college A minus or A. And then you start with a school like Harvard, and almost everybody who gets into Harvard has taken AP courses, so they don't give any credits at all, but you do get advanced standing in the classes. So that's about the way it goes. But college, the advanced places is what you're going to be hearing a lot about if you go to some of those sessions today, including a session of students who are on the Pennsylvania Homeschoolers AP Online courses. Now, if the course includes the word honors in it, the course title, this means on the transcript, if it's called Honors U.S. History, then the evaluator has to attach an explanation of the special honors received or the great initiative shown. That's how your evaluator has to actually explain it in the evaluation letter in order to put honors on. We started this bylaw when some evaluators were making everything honors phys ed. Honors, everything was honors, and it was trivializing the word honors. There was no consistency throughout our program. So now the evaluator has to attach an explanation. Like if you win an award, that's a special honors received. If you show great initiative in the course, that's a way you can get it called an honors course. Going on. Oh, that's full year's courses. And before I go to half year's courses, I want to get at least 3 questions. There's a lot of things I talked over here. What does it mean to do 2/3 of a textbook? Logged entries, research paper, and so on. Who has a question?
I have a question about college courses. I've looked at the possibility of that, and they look for a reference from your local school district. What do we do in that case? I can't fill out that form and say, here's what my school district says about my student.
Have us do it.
Okay.
We do it all the time.
Oh, okay, great, great. Because the other thing I'm concerned about is grading. I mean, I grade my niece, even though we don't have any formal process for that, but that's certainly not going to come into the college work. You know, when I present her papers or diploma at the end, I'm presuming she's not going to have grading in there. So I don't know what they do in terms of placement of students with that.
Our evaluators do give grades on the
Okay,
transcript. That's part of the transcript. I haven't shown you a transcript yet, but you'll see them on the transcript. And our transcript calculates grade point average. That doesn't mean that we don't have a pass as an option. There is most people who do phys ed, they get pass instead of a letter grade. Anything that you just have a pass on, it doesn't go into your grade point average. If you get a grade from college, that's the grade that goes on our transcript. You don't get to change it. If you go to high school and take courses in the high school, that's the grade that goes on our transcript. You don't get to change it. If you come into Pennsylvania Homeschoolers Accreditation Agency after 2 years as a school student, then all those courses and grades go on our transcript. We just accept them, but you don't get to change the grades. So almost everybody gets letter grades, and for the very reason you mentioned, because if you don't have a GPA, you can't get a scholarship to college
right.
without that. So I've had a lot of people who said, you know, very idealistic going into 9th grade. We don't believe in grading. We're never going to give our kids grades. And then when they got to the college admissions process, they said, can we go back and give our kids grades all the way through 9th, 10th, and 11th grade that we didn't do before? Because they finally found out the reality of the world.
I just have one more question and I'll give the mic up. And that's, you said approved syllabus for the AP course, a college board approved syllabus. How would I find those syllabi?
Well, the College Board has an approval process where they actually approve a course. I think you could probably find a approved syllabi on their website, so I can't tell you exactly where. But all of the AP teachers in Pennsylvania Homeschoolers AP Online have submitted their course syllabi to the College Board. They've looked them over. Sometimes they said, well, you don't have this objective in it. This is one of the objectives you have to have for AP Macroeconomics. And so then you have to go back and revise it, then you resubmit it until you finally have all of the objectives that are supposed to be covered. But basically what they're looking for is the coverage of the course meets the AP course.
Okay, great. Thanks very much.
Surely there are some more questions here.
I have a question.
Good.
I was wondering, I have a student with learning disabilities, and looking at the requirements here, I don't know how in the
Uh-oh. Well, I'm going to try to answer your question, but you went silent in the middle
I
of
also
it.
saw that when making transcripts, if you have a child with or student with some kind of disability, it can be written as adapted or something. But my question is, how do you make the plan for these adapted courses so your student can meet the requirements, you know, that will also fulfill the PHAA for a diploma? Like, is there a certain person you meet with and make a plan, or does the parent just set the goals? I don't know how that would work.
Okay, there's about 3 questions in here, and they're all taken care of. First of all, the homeschool law itself takes care of the first part, who sets the goals, and the parent does, but those goals have to be approved by either a licensed or school psychologist or a person who's certified in special ed. If you go back to the evaluators listing, if I can find it here, there it is. H, can pre-approve for the handicapped. That means that that person can okay your objectives as meeting the specific needs of the handicapped child. So that's all taken care of by the Pennsylvania law. But the second question is, how do you get credits for a handicap? And you already mentioned that you've already seen it. It's in the diploma guide and it is explained there. Basically, if the word adapted is put in the course title on the transcript by the evaluator, like if they say adapted English 9, adapted US history, whatever they call it, that means that they have adapted the course to the specialties of the student, and none of these other requirements have to apply. If they have adapted there, it's all based on the student themselves. But the evaluator has to put the word adapted into the course title in order to do that, in order to waive the other requirements.
Okay, that sounds great. So how do I go about making the goals for my student? I guess I would sit down with a school psychologist or a special ed teacher to figure out what would be, acceptable, what goals would be acceptable or doable. Or you said I set, the parent sets what the goals are. Is that
Well,
right?
yes, you set your goals. You have to get them approved by a school psychologist, a licensed psychologist, or somebody who's got a special ed certification. Basically, your objectives function as the student's IEP in the language of schools, unless that language has changed. IEP is what they used to use, and it stood for Individualized Educational Plan. Every special ed teacher has to make an individualized educational plan for every student in their class. But you make it for your student, but it has to be pre-approved by somebody with those directions. Now, as far as beginning to do it, I don't really know. If your students has been in school, you can use the old IEP that they had as your basis.
She hasn't been in public school, so.
Well, you don't actually have to declare her as handicapped unless you want to. You can still use the adapted on our transcript without declaring her. Basically, once a student has been classified by the schools as handicapped, that's when you have to go through the pre-approval process.
Okay, yeah, she has some diagnoses, so I have a friend that's a special ed teacher. Maybe
Perfect. Perfect. That person can pre-approve your objectives.
Okay.
So discuss this with her and she'll give you good advice.
Okay, that's great. Thank you so much.
But anyway, you actually don't need her to pre-approve your objectives, but still you might want to use her as a kind of reference, and she will get you into the whole mindset of focusing on what the student can do, what your goals are for the student, and how you can take your student a little bit along the way toward their goals and your goals for them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
I only count 2 questions, and I said I wouldn't go on until 3. Is there a third?
How would you include musical instruction lessons and on a transcript, or could that even be included?
Well, of
Um,
course, you could. I'd say the best idea is to use the logged entries idea. Keep track of how much she practices. Like have a little entry, lesson today, practice today, 30 minutes. You can keep track of practicing how many minutes. 120 hours is a full year course. And by the way, that what I'm about to get into is what's a half year course. You can get a half year credit too. Whoops, I'm going the wrong way. Half year course would be 60 daily logged entries or 60 hours. So let's say they only get up to 60 hours of practicing piano, then they only get a half year credit. If they get up to 120, full year. What would be better discipline than to keep track of even a calendar? Check it when you actually practiced. So if you practice enough days of the week and count your lesson as one of the days too, if you practice and have lessons 4 days, any performance you do, you count that. But if you have 120 log days where you practiced, that's about 1/3 of a year because there's 365 days in a year, or 1/6 of a year, 1 out of every 6 days, that's a half year course.
Very clear. Thank you.
Oh, good. I'll give you a few seconds for another question. I'm ready for them and available. Then I'll go on to the half year courses.
If a student is doing a online computer course and they complete 2/3 of that course, would that still count if it's a high school course?
I think what you're talking about is a course where they give a grade at the end.
It's
And
it's an actual course on learning how to do computer programming, but it's designed as a 1-year course. So would they need to complete the entire thing, or could they complete 2/3 of it, I guess is my
Are
question.
they going to get any kind of grade at the end?
Yes, every week they have a grade for an assignment that they've completed based on the course, plus a midterm that has to be completed.
And they have a final grade too?
Yes.
Well, I think you could get credit not based on 2/3 of the course, but
Okay.
based on 120 logged entries.
Okay.
But you'd have to complete the course, and then whatever grade the course assigns would be the course would go on the transcript. And basically all your evaluator will be looking for, if you complete the course, is the grade you got. And
Okay.
maybe any comments. Let's say there were some good comments from the teacher. Some teachers do give good comments. They can write those comments right into the evaluation letter. What better way to write an evaluation letter than to put in good recommendations from some teachers that the student was in, and
Okay.
the course the student was in.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions before we go on? Boy, we're running out of time, so I better get on. Okay, half your course is just this many credits. And here's what the transcript looks like. This is a transcript that's not complete because it has mid-year grades at the end. Look, there's a GPA at the top. I was telling you there would be a GPA. Your evaluator actually has a way they can take this transcript along with the cover letter and transcript, they can, and all the evaluation letters, and they can create a single PDF and email it to a college for you. You don't have to go through PHAA when the student's in school. Now, the graduation checklist, here are the requirements for PHAA. They're in our diploma guide. These are the courses that have to be taken between 7th and 12th grades. And these are what you have to do. Now, it takes 4 years to do 4 years of English. You can't do 2 years in 1 year. So it takes 4 years. We're not a program where you can go through, rush through, and after 2 years you get a diploma. And that's because diplomas are all judged on how long they take. And also, our philosophy is not to rush students. We have students do a lot of college work at home. We're not trying to get kids into college at age 16. But some kids will start PHAA young. In 9th grade, you can still graduate at 16. Then at the end, the final transcript has these places for signatures. Your signature, you're the supervisor, that's the parent. You also have to sign here at the bottom, and the graduate has to sign. And you have to certify that the student met all the requirements for graduation from a home education program as specified by the homeschool law. And that means you can't drop out of school. You can't say, oh, my kid is past the compulsory school age. I'm not going to file an affidavit this year. If you do, you can't get a diploma under the Pennsylvania law. You're on your own. Take the GED. Maybe you can persuade a college you really got a diploma, but you can't get a diploma unless you homeschool 12th grade. So you sign that. That's one of the things you send to us. That graduation checklist, though, they can all be found in PHAA forms. Again, click on more. You can also find them in the diploma guide. Here's what our diploma request form looks like. It has the same compliance verification language as was on the transcript on it. And here's what our online form looks like. Again, you put down what grade you took, what year you took each one of those courses in. And last, we have graduation ceremonies. This year, again, like last year, it's going to be virtual. You can watch last year's ceremony on our YouTube channel. There's a link right there. If you click on ceremonies, you can watch last year's virtual. Next year, we'll get back to buildings. We just can't arrange with a building for this year. And here's what our diploma looks like. This is one of my daughter's diplomas. It's signed by me as the executive director, by my wife as the supervisor, that's the parent who's homeschooling, and by our evaluator. There's her diploma number. Every one of our diplomas has a number, and it comes in a beautiful case. This is a little sneak peek at the survey session we're going to have about how the diploma helped people. And that's all the time we have, and it's time to go to the next session. So I'm going to have to exit without any more questions. Sorry about that. Okay, bye, everybody.